As the Toronto Raptors look to be competitive for the upcoming season, filling out the depth is going to be essential so that we don't repeat the mistakes of last season. And we've added in an interesting piece in Jalen McDaniels. So, what impact can we expect the player to have on the season, and is this really a good signing? Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans, and welcome to Amateur Hour Sports. This is the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content in videos, live streams, and shorts. If you like what you see from today's video, you're going to get more content just like it all throughout the off season, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel to help me on my road to 15,000 subscribers, and in return, get 3 to 4 videos a week, 2 to 3 streams a week at the very least. But we're going through a breakdown of the newest Toronto Raptors player, and that is Jalen McDaniels. Made his name playing for the Charlotte Hornets, but spent the second part of last season playing with the Philadelphia 76ers, and now he is a Toronto Raptors player. And just a little bit of a synopsis, first of all, Jalen McDaniels is a versatile 6'9" forward that has shown some flashes of being able to space the ball, so it really fits the bill of what Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster typically look for this team. But is it a good signing based on the needs of the team? That's what we're going to uncover in today's video, because the Toronto Raptors, as far as free agency is concerned so far, they have definitely been one of the big losers. Losing Fred VanVleet for free. Now, obviously, there was nothing they could have done about the Houston Rockets offer, the 3-year, I think it's $128 million now offer. There was nothing the Raptors could have realistically done to match that offer, nor should they have done anything to match that offer, because he wasn't worth that. The Houston Rockets overpaid. But it's just another player in a catalog of names now that have been mismanaged by the Raptors management as far as asset retention goes. Another key player, an all-star last season, who walks away from the team for free. So things are looking really bleak for the Raptors right now. Dennis Schroder was brought in as a quote-unquote replacement, though he falls short in many metrics as to what Fred VanVleet could bring to this team. So with Fred VanVleet leaving, the Raptors were still over the cap. However, they were still under the tax, and it opened up the mid-level exception, which opened up the opportunity to sign a new point guard, and we chose Dennis Schroder for $13 million a year. My full thoughts on Schroder and VanVleet were in the previous video on the channel, but it also opened up the biannual exception, which the Raptors were able to use on Jalen McDaniels. And McDaniels, again, is an interesting player, but yes, last season, part of the problem for the Raptors was the depth, but mainly the problem was the depth in the guard department. 2 years in a row of having to overplay Fred VanVleet, so we were very much lacking ball handlers and point guards, and the team desperately lacked shooting last season. So the acquisition of Grady Dick at the NBA draft certainly helped in that endeavor, but we were so desperate for shooting that I felt as though the biggest areas of concern for the Raptors in the offseason were finding either point guard depth or shooting. And with the signing of Jalen McDaniels, yeah, he's showing flashes as a shooter, but ultimately you can't really look at him as a shooter. It's just a versatile 6'9" piece. Yet another one for this team. Again, no, it helps fill out the depth, but it doesn't address the fundamental needs of this team that we lost a lot of it with Fred VanVleet as far as shooting goes and point guard depth. Dennis Schroder doesn't replace that, and Jalen McDaniels certainly doesn't replace it as well. But what does Jalen McDaniels actually bring to this team? Well, he brings a good amount of scoring to the bench, and only 9.4 points per game, but based on what the bench has looked like in Toronto the last few years, this is going to be a bit of a breath of fresh air coming to the team. A player who is ready to play a role for the team, also rebounds the ball. He's okay in the rebounding department. The assists, don't expect much there. The assist numbers really fell off joining the 76ers. Here's a player designed to play a specific role for the team, and thankfully, he is an efficient scorer. Around 45% shooting from the field. That upgraded in his short time with the Philadelphia 76ers, and the three-point shooting, not too efficient here, 33%. He has had better seasons. He has had worse seasons as well. Ultimately, yeah, he can space the floor a little bit, but it's not a massive threat from the outside. He's going to pop up with a few threes here and there. It's not the most efficient shot, though. In the free throw department, yeah, if he can get to the rim and get to the line often, he's got a great free throw percentage, around 84% overall. But for the biannual exception, 2-year, $9 million contract here for Jalen McDaniels, you can't really get a world-beating sort of player here. This is a fine player for the money. This is a fine player for that contract. I've been a fan of Jalen McDaniels for a couple of years now, so I certainly think this is an interesting player to bring into the team. But once again, we failed to address the fundamental needs for this team going into the next season. Our backup guard, our guard situation right now, I'm going to continue to assume they're going to want to start Dennis Schroder. Obviously, you could slot Scottie Barnes to the point guard position, but I think the team is further away from their ceiling not having Scottie Barnes in the 4 position, because I think Scottie Barnes is closer to his personal ceiling playing in a 4 position, acting more as a dribble handoff guy. I can see Scottie Barnes really excelling in a role similar to what Bam Adebayo does on offense for the Miami Heat with dribble handoffs, setting screens, but Scottie Barnes can also be a much more dynamic player with the ball in his hands when necessary and can initiate the offense very well in some full court settings. But the half court settings, not sold on Scottie Barnes' fit in the point guard position. Therefore, I still don't quite consider him a point guard, but the guard depth without Scottie Barnes is very, very bleak, which might force our hand. It's going to be Dennis Schroder, Malachi Flynn, and Jeff Dowtin. Like, I know Jeff Dowtin was pretty impressive near the end of the previous season, but that was a very short window, and still, I think it was impressive in comparison to what we had with the team. I expect Malachi Flynn to be a bit improved with Darko Rajakovic as head coach. Malachi Flynn is a pick-and-roll specialist. Darko Rajakovic runs a lot of pick-and-rolls, but again, Dowtin and Flynn, as much as NBA caliber players, I don't trust them at the moment to get consistent rotational minutes for this team. And that was an area that was not addressed in the slightest by the Raptors this summer, and has not been addressed by the Raptors in the slightest in the last 2 years. If you're wondering about Delano Banton also being part of the point guard depth, Delano Banton's a UFA. The Raptors chose not to extend him his qualifying offer and thus made him a UFA, which means there really is no want from the Raptors to bring him back to the team. Another area of concern is the shooting department. Grady Dick, yes, he does bring in a lot of shooting, does bring in some movement shooting, but a big focus of the team this year really should have been adding in shooting. And the fact that we downgraded so heavily in the shooting for this team when we lost Fred VanVleet and replaced him with Dennis Schroder made me think even more that this team needed more shooters on the bench. So bringing in Jalen McDaniels once again does not address that fundamental need for the team. So the impact Jalen McDaniels can have on this team, I mean, the depth is not very good. I mean, the overall depth of this team right now is likely going to be no backup point guard for Dennis Schroder. I don't think they're going to run Malachi Flynn very often even still. You're going to see Boucher. You're going to see Achua. You're going to see Jalen McDaniels coming off the bench in a small forward position. You're going to see a mixture of Gary Trent Jr. and Grady Dick. Gary Trent may be a starter, but a mixture of those two. And you can go a little bit further than depth with Otto Porter Jr., who is going to remain with the team. Those are the guys I expect to see consistent minutes. So not the best looking depth as far as competitive teams go, but Jalen McDaniels I think can be a big part of it, especially with his versatility and the amount of positions that he can play. That was definitely a big draw for the Raptors, but ultimately, once again, it's just not a player that addresses what I think the Raptors should have been addressing over the course of the offseason. So as far as the signing goes, just looking at it blankly, Jalen McDaniels signing for a 2-year, $9 million contract. That's good value, but for the Raptors, maybe not the best fit for the team. This is also a bit of a blemish on the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers at the deadline traded Matisse Thybulle and a second-round pick, a pretty good second-round pick as well, to get Jalen McDaniels. And it's a bit of a gross mishandling of assets there with the 76ers as well, because McDaniels just walks for free after playing 25 or so games without much significance on their season because they were already pretty locked up into their seeding at that point at the trade deadline. They traded Thybulle and a second-round pick for a rental for Jalen McDaniels, who fell out of the rotation when it came to the NBA playoffs as well. So not the most glamorous of signings to the Raptors, a fine pickup on a biannual exception, and I understand all these things, but once again, I'm going to reiterate from the last video, this can't be it for the Raptors. Like, it can't be it. Let's say the starting lineup is going to be Barnes, Trent, OG, Siakam, and Poeltl with a bench unit of Schroder, Dick, McDaniels, Boucher, Achua. That's your 10-man rotation going into the season for the Raptors. That's just not a team that can be that competitive. Me looking at a team, that's not a top 8 team in the Eastern Conference. So with the fit issues all around the team, with the quality issues in many different areas of the team and the way they're going to gel together, I understand with a new coach, I think a deal has to happen somewhere. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if we're going to get it, but I am on the side of moving on from a Siakam right now, or maybe even OG Anunoby, not having to worry about their unrestricted free agency, which is coming up in a year's time, and filling out the depth a little bit better, addressing the needs of this team a little bit better, and sure, wanting to win games and be competitive, but having a direction in mind that the fans can get behind, which I think at the moment we're just not in that position. The signing of Jalen McDaniels, yeah, a fun little signing, doesn't really help with a ton of the needs of this team. So what do you make of the Jalen McDaniels signing? Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching this video. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more Raptors content. I'll be back very, very soon for another video.